we will discuss the messages of Sir Alfred Hitchcock's 1954 masterpiece The Rear Window. One of 5 times he was nominated for an Oscar, never to win Best Director. His films did however win 6 out of 46 in other categories. In 1997 the film was added to the Library of Congress for its cultural and historical significance. The setting is set in one location, the aesthetics encompassing the small courtyard is astonishing, everything in plain view. There could have been more emphasis on the buildings to the right with additional characters. Exposition from the 4 protagonists is excellent and well-paced, though repetitive in some aspects. Please watch the film first. This film can easily be seen as promoting scopophilia and voyeurism if it not for the protagonists' well intentions. We see characters like newlyweds who can't get enough of each other. Quickly the spark is out. Scene when the husband sparks a cigarette, maybe the wife's clingy nature is giving him buyer's remorse. She might be too much an nymphomaniac for his taste. Only a baby can ruin this marriage. Here we have Mrs. Hearing Aid, who has to put up with Mrs. Torso non-stop dancing upstairs. As a starving artist she sculpts a piece called Hunger. The couple sleeping on this fire escape to avoid the heat from their apartment. The wife lifts and lowers a lively dog, on occasion. The dog digs through Lars Thorwald's flower bed. Jeff's first-person view, enhances based on the equipment he is peering through. Whether it's the binoculars, or the telescopic lens from his camera, it gives a realistic reason for those enhancements. Portrayed by Georgine Darcy, Mrs. Torso is objectified not only by people she mingles with throughout the film, but also by the audience. She fits the description of the male gaze image. Feminists can make out the woman in this film as eye candy, submitting to the patriarchy, but simply, it projects virtuous empowerment instead. His torso, while most definitely a sex symbol, can be defined as much more than just an aesthetic or prop. She is professional in her dancing and pure throughout the film by avoiding the sexual advancements of men with high status. Judith Evelyn portrays Mrs. Lonely Hearts, a woman who looks well past her prime and desperate for love. At first she could be excused as a superficial alcoholic, who has dates with herself, but then she brings a young stud home from the restaurant from across the street. Surely this cougar's intentions is to seduce him, but then she is seen slapping him for being too provocative. This indicates fundamental purity, despite her longing for marriage and heavy alcohol use. Now let's get into the main plot. James Maitland Stewart is one of Hollywood's most prominent actors, had family deeply rooted in military service, both grandfathers having fought in the Civil War. He enlisted while already considered as triple threat in the acting business. He became a pilot fighting in World War II, Korea and Vietnam, with Ronald Reagan ranking him to Major General in 1985. Showcasing his triple threat skill set as the Pekingese saving sailor Ted Baker, in 1936 musical Born to Dance, Stewart had his real breakthrough in ensemble comedy, You Can't Take It With You, by Italian filmmaker Frank Capra's third Oscar win for Best Director, the 2 previous being 1936 Mr. Deeds Goes to Town, and 1934 It Happened One Night. Stewart starred in 1939 politically controversial film, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, as Jefferson Smith, who is running for Senate on a coin flip. Also in 1946 fantasy, It's a Wonderful Life, both directed by Capra himself. Stewart won his only Oscar from 1940 romantic comedy, The Philadelphia Story. The Library of Congress has 11 films from Stewart registered. He starred in 4 Hitchcock films, including this one, where he stars as L.B. Jeff Jeffries. A photographer who broke his leg trying to take a daring picture during a race, gains a tenacity as a peeping Tom. His nurse Stella, played by 5-time Oscars Best Actress nominee Thelma Ritter, has some jurisprudence, political, economic and matrimonial exposition.
The sentence for a peeping Tom is 6 months in the workhouse. You know, in the old days, they used to put your eyes out with a red-hot poker. Oh, dear. We become a race of peeping Toms. What people ought to do is get outside their own house and look in for a change. How's that for a bit of homespun philosophy?
Reader's Digest, April 1939.
Well, I only quote from the best. You know, I should have been a gypsy fortune teller instead of an insurance company nurse. I got a nose for trouble. You heard of that market crash in '29? I predicted that. I was nursing a director of General Motors. Then I asked myself, what's General Motors got to be nervous about? Overproduction, I says. Collapse. When General Motors has to go to the bathroom 10 times a day, the whole country's ready to let go.
Stella, in economics, a kidney ailment has no relationship with the stock market, none whatsoever.
First you smash your leg, then you get to looking out the window, see things you shouldn't see. I can see you in court now, surrounded by a bunch of lawyers in double-breasted suits. You're pleading. You say, Judge, it was only a little bit of innocent fun. I love my neighbors like a father. And the judge says, well, congratulations. You've just given birth to 3 years in Dannemora. Some of the world's happiest marriages have started under the gun, as you might say. Intelligence. Nothing has caused the human race so much trouble as intelligence. Modern marriage. Now it's read a lot of books, fence with a lot of four-syllable words, psychoanalyze each other, until you can't tell the difference between a petting party and a civil service exam.
Well, that's fine, Stella. Now, would you fix me a sandwich?
1954 was indeed the year for Grace Kelly, who in 2 years would become the Princess of Monaco. Being known for films like 1953 Technicolor Adventure, Me Gamble, and winning an Oscar for Best Actress in The Country Girl. She also starred in Alfred Hitchcock's To Catch a Thief, Dial M for Murder, and this film. Taking to her name as the platinum blonde whose demeanor is more aesthetic than her physical beauty. Lisa Carol Fremont, a socialite princess in the fashion industry, takes interest in the photographer, wearing 3-layer dress worth $1,500, which is the equivalent to over $25,000 in today's money, shows how much she values her time with Jeff.
And then I had to go to 21 and have lunch with the Harvest Bazaar people, and that's when I ordered dinner. Then I had 2 false showings 20 blocks apart. Then I had to have a cocktail with Leland and Slim Haywood for trying to get his new show. And then I had to dash back and change. I could see you looking very handsome and successful in a dark blue flannel suit.
Now, let's stop talking nonsense.
Guess I'd better start setting up for dinner.
Jeffries, however, seems threatened by her status, maybe even annoyed at her superficial taste. She is enlightened by the pianist's song, as if it were written for them. He jokingly adds, "No wonder it's taking him long." Despite being saddened by his comments, Lisa is committed.
A true statement, but I can back it up if you just shut up for a minute.
If your opinion is as rude as your manner, I don't think I care to hear it.
I mean, according to you, people should be born, live, and die on the same spot.
Shut up! Did you ever have those high heels? They'll be great in the jungle, and the nylons and those 6-ounce laundry.
3.
All right, it's 3. They'll make a big hit in Finland just before you freeze to death.
Well, if there's one thing I know, it's how to wear the proper clothes.
Yeah.
This scene is an example of male chauvinist behavior from Jeffries in order to hide his insecurities. Lisa easily picks him apart with her openness, wit, and her love for Jeffries. When she threatens to leave, he suddenly asks when is he gonna see her again. This answers her question. He does love her even though he can't admit it. Jeffries tries to stay awake after hearing a shriek. Finding his neighbor Lars Thorwald acting suspicious, going in and out of his apartment. We can also see the pianist frustrated. He will never finish his song. This relates much to Jeffries' intuition to Lisa earlier. The viewer can easily make the assumption that the wife was murdered by Lars. There is no mystery here, or a twist. Mrs. Thorwald was contentious and bedridden even though she can indeed walk without struggle. It seems as if Lars married Anna for her privileged background. They have lived there for about 6 months. His behavior becomes more erratic, leading to the topic of the Fourth Amendment in the Bill of Rights. Privacy does enable heinous crimes to thrive without proper surveillance. If you've done nothing wrong, there is nothing to hide. In contrast, sacrificing liberty for security will get you neither, all while losing both. Modern instances where a law creates coercion for the sakes of security is George Bush's Patriotic Act and Barack Obama's Freedom Act. The latter sounding more oxymoronic. This overreach is indeed unconstitutional no matter the justification.
Well, then do a good job. I'll go over there and search Thorwald's apartment. It must be knee-deep in evidence.
I can't do that.
Well, no, I don't mean right now, but when he goes out for a drink or a paper or something, what he doesn't know won't hurt him.
I can't do that even if he isn't there. Now, don't get me mad. Not even a detective can walk into an apartment and search it. Why, if I were caught in there, they'd have my badge within 10 minutes. At the risk of sounding stuffy, I'd like to remind you of the Constitution. The phrase, search warrant, issued by a judge who knows his Bill of Rights verbatim. He must ask for evidence.
Fishing out a postcard from Lars Thorwald's wife's Anna, this proves she is alive. True hypocrisy after just explaining the Fourth Amendment. Wendell Corey plays Detective Tom Doyle, as the Hitchcockian-styled incompetent authority. Slightly misogynistic and interested in Jeffries' conquests, like they say, keep your enemies closer. Lisa does not buy the letter's authenticity. Doyle refutes her in misogynistic fashion after her theory.
I don't know how many wasted years I've spent tracking down leads based on female intuition.
When Jeffries asked Detective Doyle if she wasn't coming back, why didn't he notify the landlord? To which he answered, "Do you tell your landlord everything?" Jeffers felt a perverted undertone because Doyle was staring at Lisa's lingerie. Why would the detective correlate murder with intimate privacy? Is this a hidden sexual perversion? Or an obstruction of justice? Lieutenant Doyle and Jeff flew planes in the war, in which only Jeff received a medal. There was a alpha-male, competitive nature going on between them. By the end of the film, Stella pushes Doyle away from Jeff. This is a clarification of the detective's deceptive nature.
Oh, Jeff, if you need any more help, consult the yellow pages in your telephone directory.
I love funny exit lines.
I wonder if it's ethical to watch a man with binoculars and a long focus lens. You suppose it's ethical even if you prove that he didn't commit a crime?
You and me with long faces plunged into despair because we find out a man didn't kill his wife. We're two of the most frightening ghouls I've ever known. You'd think we could be a little bit happy that the poor woman is alive and well.
Lisa feels appalled in caring more about the crime than truly being concerned with Thorwald's well-being. In finally being glad that Anna Thorwald is alive. Whatever happened to that old saying, "Love thy neighbor?" she said. Lisa asked, did Mr. Doyle think I stole the case? Wondering why he was staring at it, before closing the bamboo blinds for privacy. Just as they are about to get it on. "Hey, neighbor," lets out the scream. Someone strangled the dog. The owner let out her displeasure to all the neighbors for their lack of vigilance and carelessness. This gives reassurance that Mrs. Thorwald is indeed dead, because Lars did not turn on his lights while everyone else did. Jeff has Stella join the show. Stella states Miss Thorwald is scattered all over town to Lisa's discomfort. Jeff writes on a paper, "What have you done to her?" And Lisa decides to drop it off, being the most capable. Just as she does so, Mr. Thorwald senses Lisa's presence and almost catches her. As this is happening, Miss Lonely Heart seems to be in low spirits, reading the gospel, while also proceeding to have a self-induced overdose. When Lisa arrives, she asks what was his reaction. A starstruck Jeff can't even answer. This is the moment he wants to marry her. Jeff contacts Lars and tells him to meet at a bar. While gone, Stella and Lisa try to dig in his garden. To Jeff, Stella's prediction of Miss Lonely Heart's suicide is proven wrong, as she starts reading the scriptures. This while Lisa breaks into Thorwald's apartment, risking her life to seek justice for the love of Anna Thorwald. Lisa finds the bag and lets out a beautiful smile, only for it to be empty. It was great how the pianist grew before our eyes from nothing into composing with a famous band. Stella's intuition proves masterful when Miss Lonely Hearts indeed wants to end her life of a spinner. They call the police. While distracted, Thorwald returns while Lisa is still snooping in his apartment. Jeff is terrified of what will happen to Lisa. It seems like Thorwald is strangling her. The police arrive just a few seconds later. Lisa admits to an unlawful entry, wanting to be arrested. She found Anne Thorwald's ring and signals Jeff from afar. Mr. Thorwald now pinpoints Jeff. Jeff quickly calls Detective Doyle and whispers what he saw, then he rolls his wheelchair into a dark corner as Mr. Thorwald breaks in. Jeff blinds him for a second, taking a few pictures. Until Thornton rushes and grabs Jeff like a rag doll. The officers pull Mr. Thorwald away from Jeff, giving time for the officers below to catch him. Detective Doyle arrives a second later, only for Stella to push him away. In a new light we see Miss Lonely Hearts inside the pianist's studio, telling him how much his music meant to her. There is also a new puppy in town and Mrs. Dorso is avoiding every bachelor, because she is already taken. The newlyweds are on the rocks. Last but not least, sadly, Jeff will be a paraplegic for a while. Yet he is the happiest man on earth. Is this Hitchcock's magnum opus? Was there misogynistic undertones? Is Stella, the insurance nurse, really clairvoyant? Was Detective Doyle breaking the law? Which classic shall I review next? Thank you for watching. Comment below.